My wife told me to use my hand and refused intimacy, so I used her own logic against her, cut off the money, and forced our marriage to change forever. Let me be clear about something right from the start. When I tried to be intimate with my wife, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Use your hand. I'm not in the mood to please you." What happened next changed everything between us forever, but let me back up for a second. This wasn't some random bad day or monthly hormonal thing. This was the culmination of years of me being the only one who ever tried to maintain any physical connection in our marriage. Every single time it was me reaching out, me trying, me hoping tonight might be different, and every single time I got shot down with some excuse. I'm tired. I have a headache. I ate too much dinner. I have to work early tomorrow. The list went on and on. After a while, you start to feel like you're begging for scraps from someone who's supposed to love you. That Tuesday night was no different than any other. We'd had a decent day together, watched some Netflix, ordered Thai food, normal married couple stuff. When we got to bed, I tried to initiate something. Nothing crazy, just normal husband and wife intimacy. I reached over, started being affectionate, and immediately felt her body language change. She didn't even look at me when she said it. Just stared at the ceiling and delivered that line like she was telling me to take out the trash. Use your hand. I'm not in the mood to please you. Now, I'd heard plenty of rejections over the years, but this one hit different. There was something so cold, so dismissive about it, like I was some kind of inconvenience for wanting to be close to my own wife. Most guys would probably get angry, start a fight, maybe storm out of the room. But something interesting happened to me in that moment. Instead of getting mad, I just looked at her and said, "Fair enough." She probably expected me to argue, to try to convince her to do what I'd done 100 times before. Just accept it and hope tomorrow would be better. But I didn't do any of that. I just rolled over, said goodnight, and went to sleep. But here's the thing. While my body went to sleep, my mind was wide awake. I lay there thinking about those words. "I'm not in the mood to please you." The more I thought about it, the more I realized what she'd actually said. She wasn't just rejecting me physically. She was telling me that pleasing me, making me happy, wasn't something she was in the mood for. That got me thinking about all the other areas of our marriage. How many times had I been in the mood to please her? Pretty much every day for 8 years. I was always in the mood to take her out to dinner when she wanted. Always in the mood to hand over my credit card when she wanted to go shopping. Always in the mood to fix things around the house, to listen to her complain about her job, to support whatever new hobby she was into that month. But apparently being in the mood to please me was optional for her. I started doing some mental math. The shopping trips, the dinners out, the random "I saw this cute dress" purchases, the girls' nights where I paid for her Uber there and back. We're talking thousands of dollars every month that I was apparently always in the mood to provide. By the time I finally fell asleep, I'd made a decision. If pleasure was something she wasn't in the mood to provide, then maybe payment was something I wasn't in the mood to provide either. The next morning came faster than I expected. She was already up doing her usual routine, coffee, checking Instagram, planning her day. She seemed to have completely forgotten about the night before, which told me everything I needed to know about how normal this kind of rejection had become for her. Around 10 o'clock in the morning, she came into the living room, where I was reading news on my phone. She had that look on her face that I'd seen 1,000 times before, the look that said she wanted something. "Hey," she said, sitting down next to me with that sweet voice she used when she needed money. "I was thinking about hitting the mall today. There's a sale at that store I like, and I saw some things online that would look great for the dinner we have next weekend." This was her standard approach, never directly asking for money, but painting a picture of why she needed it and expecting me to just hand over the credit card like I always did. I looked up from my phone and saw her waiting for me to respond the way I always did. "Sure, honey, take the card, have fun. Let me know if you need anything else." But instead, I just looked at her and said, "Use your job. I'm not in the mood to finance you." The silence that followed was something else. She just sat there, mouth slightly open, like I'd spoken to her in a foreign language. I could see her brain trying to process what I just said. "What?" She finally managed to get out. "You heard me," I said, going back to my phone. "Use your job. I'm not in the mood to finance you today." The way her face changed was almost comical. 8 years of marriage, and this was apparently the first time anyone had ever used her own logic against her. "Are you serious right now?" she said, her voice getting higher. "What's gotten into you?" I set my phone down and looked at her directly. "Nothing's gotten into me. I'm just applying the same standard you applied last night. You said you weren't in the mood to please me. Well, today I'm not in the mood to finance you." She stood up like she'd been shocked. "That's completely different." "How?" "Because Because that's just how marriage works. You support each other? I almost laughed at that one. Support each other? You mean like how you supported me last night when I tried to be close to my own wife? The color was starting to drain from her face. She was realizing that her usual manipulation tactics weren't working and she didn't have a backup plan. Look, she said, switching to what I called her reasonable voice, the one she used when she thought she could logic her way out of something. Last night was different. I was tired from work, and you know how stressed I've been with everything going on, right? And today I'm stressed about our finances, I said. Amazing how that works. She paced around the living room for a minute, and I could see her trying different approaches in her head. Finally, she came back and sat down, this time with her serious conversation face on. Okay, what's this really about? Are you having some kind of midlife crisis? Because this isn't like you at all. That was rich. Apparently, standing up for myself was a crisis. But 8 years of one-sided everything was perfectly normal. This is exactly like me, I said. You just never bothered to notice because I was too busy being in the mood to please you all the time. She tried a different angle. Fine. You want to talk about last night? I said I wasn't in the mood. That happens sometimes. Couples go through phases. Phases? I asked. What phase have we been in for the last 3 years where you initiate intimacy maybe twice a year, but expect me to fund your lifestyle every single day? That hit home. She knew I was right, but admitting it would mean admitting that she'd been taking advantage of me for years. I work too, she said, weekly part-time at a boutique. Your paychecks barely cover your car payment and phone bill. Meanwhile, I'm covering the mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, and every shopping trip you take. She was starting to look desperate now. So, what? You're going to punish me financially because I wasn't in the mood for sex one night? No, I said calmly. I'm going to treat our marriage the same way you do. When you're in the mood to please me, I'll be in the mood to finance you. When you're not, I won't be either. The panic in her eyes was real now. She'd never considered that her actions might have consequences. This is ridiculous. You can't just cut me off from money. Why not? You cut me off from everything else. She tried tears next. You're being cruel. This isn't how you treat someone you love. I stood up and looked down at her. You're absolutely right. It's not how you treat someone you love. So maybe you should think about that. For the next hour she tried everything. Anger, tears, guilt, trips, threats to call her mother, promises that things would be different. But I'd made my decision. If our marriage was going to be transactional, then it was going to be transactional both ways. Around noon, she made one final attempt. She came into the kitchen, where I was making lunch, and wrapped her arms around me from behind. Baby, she said in that sultry voice she used maybe twice a year when she really wanted something expensive. Why don't we go upstairs for a little while? I think I might be in the mood now. I gently removed her arms and turned around. That's interesting timing. Right after I mentioned the connection between pleasure and payment, her face went red. That's not... I wasn't sure you weren't, but here's the thing. I'm not in the mood to be manipulated either. That's when she finally lost it completely. You're being an asshole. A real husband would just give his wife money when she needs it. And a real wife would want to be intimate with her husband more than twice a year without it being a transaction. She stormed out of the kitchen, and I heard her on the phone with someone within 5 minutes. Probably her sister or one of her friends getting validation that I was being unreasonable. But I wasn't being unreasonable. For the first time in years, I was being completely reasonable. If she wasn't in the mood to please me, then I wasn't in the mood to finance her. Simple as that. What she didn't understand yet was that this wasn't some temporary tantrum. This was me finally understanding that respect in a marriage has to go both ways. And if she thought 8 years of taking me for granted had earned her the right to unlimited access to my wallet with zero reciprocation, she was about to learn otherwise. The phone calls continued all afternoon. I could hear her talking to various people, and based on the tone, she wasn't getting the sympathy she expected. Apparently, some of her friends had been dealing with similar situations with their own husbands. By Thursday, she'd moved into full strategy mode. The tears hadn't worked, the anger hadn't worked, and apparently her friends weren't giving her the support she expected. So, she decided to try psychological warfare. I've been thinking about what you said, she announced over breakfast using her most mature relationship expert voice. And I think we should go to counseling. I looked up from my coffee. Why? Because clearly we have communication issues, and a professional could help us work through this rough patch. What rough patch? I asked. I communicated perfectly clearly. When you're in the mood to please me, I'll be in the mood to finance you. What part of that needs a therapist to explain? She shifted uncomfortably. It's not that simple. Marriage is about compromise and understanding each other's needs. I agree completely. So, when are you planning to start understanding my needs? She tried a different approach. Look, maybe I haven't been as available as you'd like lately, but cutting off financial support isn't the answer. Then what is the answer? Because for 3 years I've tried talking. I've tried being patient. I've tried being understanding. The only thing I haven't tried is treating you exactly the way you treat me. That afternoon, she attempted what I can only describe as a full-scale charm offensive. She cleaned the house, made my favorite dinner, even put on makeup for the first time in weeks. When I got home from work, she was all smiles and affection. "Hey, baby," she said, giving me a hug that lasted longer than our usual 5-second greeting. "I made that pasta you love, and I picked up some wine. I appreciated the effort, but I wasn't stupid. What's the occasion? Can't a wife just want to do something nice for her husband?" We had dinner. She was chatty and engaged, laughing at my jokes like she used to when we were dating. For a moment, I almost let myself believe that maybe she'd actually understood what I was trying to tell her. Then, as we were cleaning up, she casually mentioned, "Oh, by the way, there's a girls' trip next month. Just a weekend thing, but I'll need to book the hotel soon if I want the good rate." And there it was. The whole evening had been a setup. "How much?" I asked. "It's not that expensive. Maybe $400 for the hotel and food, plus whatever shopping we do." I dried my hands and turned to face her. "Are you in the mood to please me tonight?" The question caught her off guard. "What? I mean, we just had a nice dinner. That's not what I asked. Are you in the mood to please me?" She looked trapped. If she said yes, she'd be admitting that intimacy was transactional for her. If she said no, she'd be proving my point about the girls' trip. "I don't like the way you're putting this," she said finally. "I'm putting it exactly the way you put it Tuesday night. So, I'll ask again. Are you in the mood to please me? This is manipulative. No, this is reciprocal. You set the rules. I'm just following them." Friday brought a new strategy. She started talking to my mother. I came home to find them having coffee in the kitchen, deep in conversation that stopped the moment I walked in. "Hi, honey," my mom said, giving me that look that meant I was in trouble. "We were just talking about how important it is for married couples to support each other through difficult times." "Absolutely," I said, sitting down. "Support should definitely go both ways." My wife shot me a warning look, but my mother continued. "She was telling me you two have been having some disagreements about money." "Not disagreements," I said. "Just aligning our priorities. If physical intimacy is optional in our marriage, then financial support should be optional too." My mother's eyebrows went up. My wife's face went bright red.
"That's not... I didn't say it like that," my wife stammered. "How did you say it?"
I asked. "Because I distinctly remember you telling me to use my hand because you weren't in the mood to please me." The kitchen got very quiet. My mother looked between us like she was trying to figure out who was telling the truth. "Well," my mother said slowly, "marriage is about give and take." "Exactly," I said. "The problem is for 3 years it's been me giving and her taking." After my mother left, my wife was furious. "How could you embarrass me like that in front of your mother?" "I didn't embarrass you. I told the truth. If you're embarrassed by your own words, maybe you should think about why that weekend she tried one more approach." She invited her sister over for dinner, clearly planning some kind of intervention. Her sister arrived Saturday night armed with statistics about divorce rates and lectures about how men need to be more understanding of women's changing needs throughout marriage. "Sometimes women go through phases where they're less interested in physical intimacy," she explained, like I was a child who needed education. "That doesn't mean their husbands should retaliate financially." "You're right," I said. "And sometimes men go through phases where they're less interested in being financial providers. That doesn't mean their wives should retaliate emotionally. That's completely different." "How?" She looked frustrated. "Because financial support is a basic responsibility in marriage, and so is physical intimacy," I replied. "But apparently only one of those things is actually required." My wife jumped in. "He's being impossible. All I said was that I wasn't in the mood one night, and now he's acting like I'm some terrible wife." "One night?" I looked at her sister. "Ask her when the last time was that she initiated anything physical between us." "That's private," my wife said quickly. "Not anymore, it isn't. You brought your sister into this, so let's be honest. When was the last time you were in the mood to please me without me having to ask first?" The silence stretched out uncomfortably. Her sister looked at my wife, waiting for an answer that never came. "That's what I thought," I said. "But I bet you can tell me exactly when the last time was that you asked me for money." By Sunday night, it was clear that none of her strategies were working. I wasn't budging, and she was starting to realize that this wasn't some temporary mood I was in. This was permanent change in how our marriage was going to function. Monday morning brought the nuclear option. She'd clearly spent the weekend plotting because she came into the kitchen with a completely different energy. "I talked to a lawyer," she announced while I was pouring coffee. I didn't even look up. About what? About my rights in this marriage. About what happens when a husband tries to financially control his wife. That got my attention. I turned around and leaned against the counter. "And what did this lawyer tell you? That withholding financial support could be considered financial abuse in a divorce proceeding?" I had to give her credit. She'd found the one angle that was supposed to make me panic and cave immediately. Too bad for her. I've been expecting this move. "Interesting," I said. "Did you mention to this lawyer that you've been withholding physical intimacy for 3 years? Because I talked to one too, and apparently that's called constructive abandonment." Her confident expression faltered slightly. "Did you also mention that you work part-time by choice?" "Not because I've prevented you from working full-time, because that matters too." Now she looked genuinely worried. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued calmly. "You're going to call that lawyer back and ask them what percentage of marital assets you'd be entitled to after 8 years of marriage with no kids, where you contributed maybe 15% of the household income and refused to fulfill basic marital obligations. You're bluffing. Try me." Tuesday, she escalated to social warfare. She started calling our mutual friends, family members, anyone who would listen to her version of events. The problem was most of these people had been watching our marriage for years. My buddy called me that evening. "Dude, she called my wife crying about how you're being financially abusive." "And what did your wife say?" She laughed. "She said she's been wondering for years why you put up with the way she treats you." "Really? Come on, man, we've all seen it. She treats you like an ATM with legs." My wife says half the women in our group have been making jokes about it for years. That was news to me, but it explained why her sister seemed less supportive than expected. Wednesday brought the most desperate move yet. She arranged for us to have dinner with her parents. Her father was a traditional guy who believed in old-school marriage roles, and she obviously thought he'd pressure me into going back to being the provider while she contributed nothing. "So," her father said over appetizers, "I hear you two are having some disagreements about finances." "Not disagreements," I said, "just implementing a new system where contribution and benefits are proportional." Her mother looked confused. "What does that mean?" My wife jumped in quickly. "He's decided to punish me financially because we haven't been intimate as much as he wants." Her father's face darkened. "That's not how a man handles marriage problems." "You're absolutely right," I agreed. "A man shouldn't have to handle marriage problems alone. His wife should be an equal partner in solving them." "What's that supposed to mean?" her father asked. "It means that for 3 years I've been handling all the financial responsibilities while she handles none of the physical intimacy responsibilities. I'm just balancing the equation." Her mother gasped softly. Her father looked at my wife with a different expression. "Is that true?" he asked his daughter. "You haven't been fulfilling your wifely duties?" My wife's face went red. "Dad, it's not that simple. Marriage isn't just it's about both people contributing," he said firmly. "If you're not contributing physically, why should he contribute financially?" I almost felt bad for her. She'd expected backup and instead got her own father agreeing with me. The dinner ended early, and the ride home was silent. Thursday, the friends started choosing sides publicly. At a group gathering, one of the wives actually brought it up in front of everyone. "So, I heard you're making her get a job to pay for her own shopping trips," she said with obvious approval. "I'm not making her do anything," I replied. "I'm just not volunteering to do everything for someone who doesn't volunteer to do anything for me." Another friend chimed in. "Honestly, it's about time. We've all been watching this dynamic for years." My wife looked around the table and realized that the support she expected wasn't coming. These women had been watching her take advantage of me and apparently didn't approve. "This is unbelievable," she said, standing up. "You're all taking his side." "We're not taking sides," one of them replied. "We're just saying that marriage works both ways." Friday night, she tried her final manipulation. She came home with papers. "Fine," she said, throwing them on the kitchen table. "You want to play hardball?" I filed for separation. I picked up the papers and read through them. "Interesting. You're asking for spousal support." "That's right. Let's see how you like paying for me when you're not even married to me anymore." I set the papers down and looked at her. "You do realize that spousal support requires proof that you're unable to support yourself, right? I work part-time by choice. You have a college degree and no physical limitations preventing you from working full-time. Good luck convincing a judge that you need my money when you've chosen to work 20 hours a week at a boutique." For the first time since this whole thing started, she looked genuinely scared. "Also," I continued, These separation papers mean you'll need to start paying half the mortgage, utilities, and household expenses immediately. Can your boutique job cover $1,500 a month? She sat down heavily. You're really going to let me destroy our marriage over this? I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm just treating you exactly the way you've been treating me. If you don't like it, maybe you should consider why. But I love you. Funny way of showing it. That night, she didn't sleep in our bedroom. I found her on the couch the next morning, and she looked like she'd been crying all night. But I learned not to feel guilty for demanding the same respect I'd been giving for 8 years. Saturday morning, she was waiting for me in the kitchen with coffee already made and those separation papers spread out on the table. I want to talk, she said quietly. I sat down across from her. Okay, I've been thinking about everything you said, about how I've been treating you, and she took a deep breath. Maybe I haven't been as attentive as I should have been. I waited for more, but that seemed to be the extent of her revelation. That's it, I asked. What do you mean? 3 years of rejecting any physical intimacy, 8 years of treating me like your personal bank account, and your conclusion is that maybe you haven't been attentive enough? She looked frustrated. What do you want me to say? I want you to be honest, not strategic, not manipulative, not calculating what you think I want to hear. Just honest. She stared at her coffee for a long time. When she finally looked up, I saw something different in her eyes. I took you for granted, she said finally. I knew you'd always be there, always provide for me, always put up with whatever I dished out. And I guess I stopped trying to be a good wife because I didn't think I had to be. That was closer to the truth than anything she'd said in weeks. Why? I asked. Because you made it easy. You never complained, never demanded anything, never set any boundaries. So I just kept taking more and giving less. And now, she gestured at the papers. Now I realized that I might lose everything because I was too selfish to appreciate what I had. I leaned back in my chair. So, what are you proposing? I want to fix this. I want to be better. How? She reached across the table and tried to take my hand, but I pulled it back. I can be more intimate, more affectionate. I know I've been cold, and I'm sorry. Because you want my money back, or because you actually want to be married to me? The question hung in the air for a long moment. Both, she said finally. I need your financial support, but I also don't want to lose you. At least she was being honest about the money. Here's the problem, I said. For 8 years you've shown me exactly who you are when you think you have all the power in this relationship. Why would I believe you'd be any different if I gave you that power back? Because I've learned my lesson. Have you? Or have you just learned that there are consequences to treating your husband like garbage? She started crying then. Real tears. Not the manipulative ones she tried earlier in the week. Please, she said. I know I messed up. I know I've been selfish and terrible, but we can fix this. How do I know this isn't just another strategy? How do I know that 6 months from now you won't go right back to rejecting me while expecting me to fund your lifestyle? Because I promise. I almost laughed. Your promises don't mean much anymore. Sunday she tried to prove her newfound commitment by being physically affectionate for the first time in months, but it felt forced, desperate, like she was checking items off a list to get her credit card back. Stop, I said when she tried to initiate something in bed. What's wrong? This isn't real. You're not doing this because you want to be close to me. You're doing it because you want me to start paying for your shopping trips again. That's not true. Then prove it. Get a full-time job. Pay your own expenses for 6 months. Show me that you can be an equal partner, not just someone who performs when she needs something. The suggestion horrified her. You want to get a real job? I want you to be an adult who contributes to this marriage instead of just taking from it. But I don't want to work full-time. And there it was. The real issue. She didn't want to change her lifestyle. She just wanted me to go back to funding it. Monday morning I woke up to find her sitting at the kitchen table, with her laptop open, apparently job hunting. I'm looking for full-time positions, she announced. Good for you. I found a few marketing coordinator jobs that pay decent money. I poured my coffee without responding. If I get one of these jobs, would you consider tearing up those separation papers? Maybe. She looked hurt that I wasn't more enthusiastic. What else do you want from me, she asked. I want you to actually want to be married to me, not just financially dependent on me. Tuesday afternoon she called me at work. I got an interview, she said, sounding genuinely excited for the first time in weeks. That's great. It's for Thursday. The pay is almost $40,000 a year. Good luck. If I get this job, things will be different, I promise. Wednesday night, she was nervous about the interview. She tried on different outfits, practiced answers to common questions, actually seemed to care about making a good impression. I'm scared, she admitted as we were getting ready for bed. About the interview, about everything, about losing you, about having to actually work for a living, about growing up. That last part was telling. Maybe growing up isn't such a bad thing, I said. Thursday evening, she came home from the interview looking defeated. How'd it go? I asked. Terrible. They wanted someone with more experience, more skills, more everything. So keep looking. She sat down heavily on the couch. What if I can't find anything good? What if I have to work retail or food service? Then you work retail or food service until you can find something better. But that's not fair. I have a college degree, so do millions of other people. Having a degree doesn't guarantee you anything except the opportunity to compete. Friday brought reality crashing down. She'd spent the week applying for jobs and getting mostly rejections or offers for positions that paid barely above minimum wage. This is impossible, she said, throwing her laptop aside. Nobody wants to hire someone who's been working part-time for 8 years. Then you start somewhere and work your way up. I can't live on $12 an hour. Then figure out how to increase your value in the job market. She looked at me like I'd suggested she climb Mount Everest. You really expect me to start over at the bottom? I expect you to be an adult that night. She came to me with one final offer. What if we compromise? She said, I'll get a part-time job that pays more than the boutique, and I'll be more affectionate, more intimate. We can meet in the middle. I looked at her for a long moment. The middle of what? You contributing 30% instead of 15% while I still contribute everything else? It's better than what we had, for you maybe. But I'm done with arrangements that benefit you more than me. So what are you saying? I'm saying that either you become an equal partner in this marriage, or you don't. There's no middle ground anymore. She stared at me, finally understanding that I wasn't going to budge. And if I can't do that? I picked up the separation papers from the table. Then we both know what happens next. Saturday morning, I woke up to an empty house. No note, no explanation, just silence. Her car was gone, most of her clothes were gone, and those separation papers were still sitting on the kitchen table. I made coffee and sat in that quiet kitchen. And honestly, I felt relieved. For the first time in years I wasn't walking on eggshells, wondering what mood she'd be in or what she'd want from me next. Around noon she texted me, staying at my sister's for a few days. Need time to think. I texted back, take all the time you need. The week that followed was strange. I came home to a clean house because I kept it clean. I made dinner for one person and didn't have to worry about whether it met her approval. I watched what I wanted on Netflix without negotiating. It was peaceful in a way I'd forgotten was possible. Wednesday, her sister called me. She's a mess, she said without preamble. She cries constantly, barely eats, keeps talking about how she made the biggest mistake of her life. I'm sorry to hear that. She wants to come home. Then she should come home. She's afraid you'll just divorce her anyway. That's up to her. What does that mean? I explained the same thing I've been explaining for 2 weeks. Equal partnership or no partnership? Contributing equally or contributing separately? She says, you've changed, her sister said. No, I've just stopped pretending that being taken advantage of is normal. Thursday evening she came back. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. I got a job, she said quietly. Congratulations. It's at a marketing agency downtown. $32,000 to start, but they said there's room for advancement. That's good. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table. I want to try again. On what terms? Your terms. I studied her face. What does that mean exactly? I'll pay half of everything. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, everything. And She paused, struggling with the words. I'll be a real wife, not just when I need something. Why? Because I spent 4 days at my sister's watching her husband treat her the way you used to treat me. And I realized what I threw away. Which was what? A good man who loved me enough to put up with my selfishness for 8 years. We sat in silence for a while. I talked to a therapist, she continued, about why I treated you the way I did. And she said, I was testing you, seeing how much I could get away with, how little I could give while still keeping you around. Why would you do that? Because I was insecure. I thought if I could control you completely, you'd never leave me. But I was so focused on control that I forgot to actually be worth staying with. It was the most honest thing she'd said in years. I start the job Monday, she said. I can pay you back for the separation lawyer, and I can start covering my share of expenses right away. What about the other part? She knew what I meant. I don't know how to fix that, she admitted. I've been rejecting you for so long that I don't know how to want you again, but I want to learn. This isn't about sex, I said. It's about respect, about being wanted by someone who chose to marry me. I know. Do you? Because for 3 years you made me feel like wanting my own wife was some kind of character flaw. Tears started rolling down her face again. I was cruel to you. I know that now. Yes, you were. We talked until almost midnight. Not about logistics or terms or conditions, but about how we'd gotten to this point and whether there was actually a way back from it. 6 months later, things were different. Not perfect, but different. She kept the job and discovered she was actually good at marketing. Got a promotion and a raise within 4 months. She started paying exactly half of everything without being asked. The physical intimacy came back gradually, not as a transaction or a duty, but because she was trying to remember how to be close to someone instead of just controlling them. We went to counseling together, which helped her understand why she'd been so manipulative and helped me understand why I'd enabled it for so long. But here's the thing that really changed. I never went back to being the guy who would accept anything just to keep the peace. I learned that setting boundaries wasn't cruel. It was necessary. 1 year later, one of our friends got divorced after his wife pulled the same not in the mood to please you routine while expecting him to fund her lifestyle. How did you fix it with your wife? He asked me. I stopped accepting a one-sided marriage, I told him. I made it clear that if she wasn't in the mood to please me, I wasn't in the mood to finance her. And that worked? It worked because it was fair. Marriage works when both people contribute equally. When only one person is contributing, it's not marriage, it's exploitation. My wife overheard that conversation and later told me she was grateful I'd been strong enough to save our marriage by refusing to accept less than I deserved. I was destroying us both, she said. You by taking advantage of you, and me by becoming someone I didn't respect. And now I work for what I want. I contribute equally to what we have. And remember that being married to you is a privilege, not a right. That's the thing about respect in marriage. Once you demand it, you usually get it, but you have to be willing to walk away if you don't. When she realized that pleasure and payment were both self-service in our house, her mood became cooperative instead of entitled, and our marriage became a partnership instead of a robbery. The separation papers are still in my desk drawer, not as a threat, but as a reminder that some things are more important than keeping the peace. Self-respect is one of them. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.